Hello, Raven Nation. Welcome to another episode of the Fly High Podcast. We are coming to you from Franklin Pierce University and the Marlon Fitzwater Center for Communication. This podcast is a part of the Raven Sports Network, and we will be filling you in on everything Franklin Pierce athletics. Hello, my name is Eli Meredith, Jr. here at Franklin Pierce University, and with me is my co-host,
John McKenna, sophomore here at Franklin Pierce University.
And we will start off with women's sports.
Thank you, Eli. So we'll start off with softball. The players of the week, the first player overall was Ashley Cangiano, catcher from here, Franklin Pierce University. The pitcher was Giselle Garcia from Pace, and the rookie of the week was Kelsey Higgins from St. Rose. So those are the outstanding players of the week, top players this week. Going over the NE10 standings, Adelphi now leads the NE10 with an impressive 13-3 record. Franklin Pierce is fifth, and they improved to 9-7, now 2 games over 500. Ravens overall are 10 games over 500 at 20-12, but they're coming off an uncharacteristic 2 straight losses at Assumption. Again, big conference games, and then 2 big losses. Now they have a massive series coming up against St. Anselm's Wednesday at home. It's a doubleheader, and so some big games for Franklin Pierce University, and you can watch those on the Raven Sports Network. Moving over to women's lacrosse, the players of the week. The overall player of the week was Maeve Johnson from Bentley. The defensive player was Angelina Porcello from Pace. The goalkeeper was Samantha Tangway from Pace, and the rookie was Lauren Rochelle from Bentley. Going over to NE10 standings, Pace is still first, and they're still undefeated. Last time we checked in, they were 6-0. Now they're 8-0. Ravens are now 3-6. Overall, they're 4-10. They're coming off 2 straight losses against Southern New Hampshire and Adelphi, so they still have not had a great year, still struggling. And the next game is going to be at home against AIC, another struggling lacrosse team, a chance for them to kind of get back on their footing and get back on the winning track. That game will also be on the Raven Sports Network. That's it for softball and lacrosse, and I'll pass it back to Eli for the men's sports.
Thank you, John. And for men's sports, to start off with baseball. Ravens go 2-2 on the weekend, shutting out American International College on Saturday and dropping 2 to St. Rose College on Sunday. As for the game on Saturday against AIC, Game 1, led by ace pitcher Kyle Roach, senior ace pitcher Kyle Roach, the Ravens won 11-0. In Game 2, they won 9-0, led by last week's Rookie of the Week freshman pitcher Nicholas Pavia. As for Sunday, against St. Rose College, Game 1, the Ravens lost 9-5. Game 2, the Ravens lost a nail-biter 3-2. The Ravens this weekend reached the 20-win mark with the sweep of AIC. They are now 20-13 overall and 14-6 in conference play after this weekend, which is still the best in the conference, 1 game above second place Southern New Hampshire. As for how the Ravens did this weekend, as a team, Franklin Pierce hit a combined .343 in batting average in the doubleheader against AIC, including hitting 4 home runs. Home runs was by third baseman Julian Monks with his second home run of the season. First baseman Nolan DeAndre, who was the player of the week last week, got his 8th home run of the season. And 2, 1 in each game, by second baseman Keobel Lugo, 4th and 5th of the season. Pitching also did well against AIC, as I mentioned earlier, with the shutouts, allowing a combined 4 hits in 2 games, racking up a total of 17 strikeouts. As for Sunday against St. Rose, those were 2 winnable games that the Ravens squad unfortunately dropped on Sunday. The first game of the doubleheader was pitched by Esteban Rivera III, who provided a strong start, going 6 innings, allowing 1 hit and striking out 4. The Ravens could not hold the lead as they were up 5-0 going into the bottom half of the seventh, St. Rose scored 4 in the seventh and 5 in the eighth to secure the victory 9-5. The second game was arguably a better start by senior pitcher Chaz Powell, who had a quality start going 6 innings, allowing 3 runs on 6 hits and striking out 2. The Ravens offense were unable to score runs late, going scoreless after the third inning, losing 3-2. The Ravens are now in the home stretch of the season with only 8 games left to go. This week they are road warriors as they travel back to St. Rose College Tuesday in a single 9-inning game and face Assumption in a 3-game weekend series Saturday and Sunday. Now moving on to men's tennis. The men's tennis team went into Saturday's matchup against Southern New Hampshire, winners of 4 straight matches. Saturday, Franklin Pierce dropped their match against Southern New Hampshire, losing their sets 4-3. Even though they lost, they continue to find ways to win and grit games out, using their veteran experience and their savvy as they look to win both of their last 2 regular season matchups against Bentley University Tuesday and against Adelphi College on Saturday. And that is all for men's sports. I'll pass it back to John, and we'll be discussing baseball today.
Yeah, Eli, a really eventful weekend there for the Ravens baseball squad. Overall, in the weekend, going 2-2 with 2 really big wins against AIC, and then 2 losses and 2 relatively close losses that were decided in the later innings. So I just wanted to say, Eli, as a player on the team and as someone who spends a lot of time around the players and in the locker room, what was the general consensus on finishing this weekend's pile of games, and how did you guys feel coming back home?
I would have to say that coming back home, the best way to say it is that we felt like we left a lot on the table. Going 2-2. AIC on Saturday, we played AIC, and AIC, to be honest, was not as good of a team as we may have thought, even though earlier this season they beat Southern New Hampshire. And Southern New Hampshire, like I mentioned earlier, second in the conference. So that's really, that was an eye-opener for us. So we really didn't take that for granted going into the game. And we handled business, shutting them out twice. And going into St. Rose, we knew that St. Rose was going to be a tough opponent just because St. Rose always plays us tough all the time, regardless of their record. And they're a much better team than AIC. They're a team that consistently finds herself around 500 year by year. And I just think our focus yesterday just wasn't where it was supposed to be. First game, we were up 5-0 going to the seventh, like I mentioned earlier, and we just didn't execute what we wanted to do on both sides of the field. And unfortunately, it slipped past us. And going into game 2, that was just like a pitcher's duel. Like, Chaz Powell did a good job keeping us in the game. Our offense kind of went cold. But that's the ebbs and flows of baseball. Sometimes it's just these games is something that we have to bounce back from. We're still 20-13, which is a great record, and we're still leading the conference in conference play record. So we just need to continue to stay focused and try to go back to or not try, but we have that mindset of going to St. Rose College on Tuesday and salvaging that last game. That'll be very important for our confidence.
Yes, that was what I had to ask you. This is a really important game coming up against St. Rose, and how important is it for not only you but for the team and the coaching staff to kind of like come back and get that last win after 2 really tough losses? One game, especially in game 1, where I bet the team felt that they should have won. How important is it for your confidence and for the rest of this year to go in there and put together a good showing against a good St. Rose team?
Yeah, John, I think it's extremely important just because we feel as though that we should have went undefeated this weekend, and we just feel as though that we're so close to just like burying teams stuff like that, especially in game one. We were so close to just finishing them off. And St. Rose found a way to get some late momentum, and we didn't execute on our end, and they they winded up, excuse me, just taking advantage of that low that we had, um, that lack of execution that we had. And, it's always hard to win a game, yet alone do it on the road. And we had some good at bats throughout the two games. We had some far drives that unfortunately found some leather later in the games, and they really had an impact on our team because we feel as though if we had those balls that were hit deep here, we feel as though those would have went out and we would have had a few home runs. But that just wasn't the case there. We should have adjusted to the environment, knowing that balls were not going to go out, but we didn't. And that's just the thing about executing. And I think that had something to do with just, we just been on a hot streak, hitting a lot of extra base hits and stuff like that. And that's been working for us. And now we just have to learn from that, turn the page, and say, okay, next time we get in an environment like that, we're able to learn from it and we're able to better execute, because I'm sure we're going to have another environment like that where it's always cold up here in the Northeast and it's always still air, and sometimes the ball just doesn't fly like it does up here because we're next to a lake and you get a lot of wind from the lake and stuff like that. So now we just make the adjustment and we just find a way to execute next time. That's literally what it's about, just turning the page and trying to execute next game against St. Rose.
Yeah, I mean, it was very interesting this weekend, going back to a weekend as a whole. On Saturday, your squad managed to put up 20 runs, absolutely exploded with the bats. And then going to Sunday, only being able to score about 7. Can you tell me how quickly that can change, at the batter's box, and with the approach, how one team can look like world beaters on one day and then be really quiet the next day?
Well, I just think, like I said earlier, it's the ebbs and flows of baseball, and not to mention we just played a better team. Um, I mentioned that the second game in particular was a pitcher's duel. The pitcher for St. Rose was mixing his pitches well, was locating his all speed along with his fastball, and we just had a tough time adjusting to that. And offensively in the first game, I think we scored 5 runs, but we should have scored more. Um, just because they didn't really have a good pitcher there. We should have scored closer to double digits. And as for the pitching side, I just think that we just didn't, like I said, we didn't execute pitches. We did not locate well towards the end of the game, and we gave a lot of um, uh, we had miscues towards the end, like just walking batters and not giving them free passes and just giving them free bases. And a lot of times that affects how the game will play out regardless of who you're playing. And then I always talk about how conference games, guys always are into it. They were down 5-0, and I feel as though if we just, executed a lot more or better towards the end of the game, they would have folded. But because we let them get a little bit of life, that's when they crawled back in and they found a way. So, like I said, we have to learn from that, and we know how gritty that team is going into Tuesday's matchup. And now it's just on us. It's just about how are we going to focus on getting our game plan done, and just being ourselves, because we know that we're the most talented team in the conference. We just have that confidence, and we know that we can do big things this year.
Yeah, you touched on it on the first game against St. Rose. Obviously had the 5-0 lead, ended up losing 9-5 with that big rally that St. Rose had. So I wanted to ask you a question about, especially for the first game of doubleheader, does that kind of bad energy after losing a game that you feel you should have won seep into the second game? And then could that be a factor in losing that one too?
I think it's a factor, yes, but I think the difference between a good team and bad team, they're able to manage that. And we're a good team. Obviously, we had our 2 losses. We didn't manage it as well, but I think we can learn from it. And that's another mark of a good team, about learning from that experience and saying, not putting extra pressure on ourselves, because we know that we lost the game ourselves. They didn't beat us. Being up 5-0 going into 7th, like, that's a sizable lead. If anything, no team's going to just beat you outright if you do that, unless they just start hitting all home runs. But even with that, like that's just because we're not locating pitches, or even with that, it's just because we're not getting hits later in the game. So it's all on us. If we just focus on us and focus on, like I said, I keep on emphasizing about the execution, focus on how we can execute, that we control our destiny, especially with us leading the conference. Um, when we control our destiny and stay focused on, hey, just control what we can control, go out there and have productive at bats, go out there and execute your pitches and have confidence on the mound. We'll be a tough team. So we're just gonna have that mindset going into these last few games and handle business against our conference foes.
Well said, Eli. And going into more of the positive side, and you mentioned it earlier, is the Ravens have been kind of on a hot streak, hitting the ball hard, a lot of home runs, a lot of hard hit balls, extra base hits, and at the center, that really has been Nolan DeAndre. He leads the team with 8 home runs. Can you tell me a little bit about him and his approach and how impressive he's been this season?
Well, Nolan has just been a good guy for us. You know what I mean? It's somebody that you want to root for. And he stayed focused. He didn't have the hottest start to the year, and it just seemed like he started turning around probably around like say like St. Mike's. Probably when we played St. Mike's, he had a very good series there. Um, I want to say St. Mike's or New Haven possibly. Uh, I'm not sure specifically. We play so many games, so sometimes I get mixed up. But he had a great series against a few of our recent opponents. St. Anselm's, he also had a good series. He just was always somebody that stayed focused, you know what I mean? And you could tell he just trusted in his abilities, even when he was not doing as well. And he was always a stud at first base. He was always good defensively. So that's something that he could always lean his hat on and just all his head on and always have some sort of confidence coming from the defensive end. And then when the bat started working in game, like, you know what I mean, that's where he just elevated because his practice sessions are insane. He hits balls all over the place in batting practice. And you could just tell that he has that potential to do uh, big things. And now he's on a hot streak. He earned himself a Player of the Week honor last week, and he's somebody that I'm looking to be just because it's his first year here this year after being a transfer. Next year, I'm looking for him to be a very key leader on the team next year, and possibly a captain just because of who he is as a person, who he is on and off the field, and he's a hard worker. So, really happy for Nolan. I just wish him continued success.
Yeah, he's been very good this season. And you mentioned earlier he's great defensively at first base.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to ask you, when you're struggling at the plate, um, does it kind of seep onto the field defensively, or can it? When you're struggling or you're frustrated at the plate, and can that affect your game defensively?
I feel as though it can. Depends on the person, for sure. I'll just use Nolan for example. He still was a stud over there. So obviously, even though I'm sure he was frustrated, he found a way to flush that when he was on defense and just cleared the slate. And that's a mark of a great player. Baseball is a game of failure. You only need to get 3 out of 10. You need to get hits 3 out of 10 times to be good in college, to be great 4 out of 10 times. So you're still failing the majority of the time. And Nolan still had his head on straight on the defensive end, and he picked us up a lot. He has a lot of signature picks over there at first when our infielders have short throws. He usually picks us up, scoops it over there, and it's a huge momentum boost when he can do that because, first base, I feel as though it's very underrated. You need a good first baseman over there that's going to be a determinant factor of those bang bang plays when a runner hits a ball on the ground, he's running it out, and there's a bang bang play. And there's nothing more exciting when your first baseman just picks you up as a ball in a dirty scoops it. The whole team gets excited because they know how huge of a play that was. So, Nolan's only a sophomore too, so that's very good for the future of Franklin Pierce baseball if he continues to just stay focused and have confidence in himself and trust his abilities, like I said earlier.
Yeah, Eli. He's one of the key contributors on this team. He leads the team in home runs with 8. But I also wanted to look at Kiobel Lugo, Jr. He leads the team in RBIs with 33. And a very underrated part of the game is hitting with runners in scoring position. It's different. You see different pitches. You have to work different types of at bats. And what have you seen from Lugo to be able to rack up these RBIs and kind of be clutch with runners in scoring position?
Well, I know us players here, we see Keo Bell. We call him Keo. We call him Mr. Cool just because he just always relaxed and always, you know, he never seems to be frustrated. Like he's always like just calm in the box and trusts his ability. He's a great player because of that. And I think that's what he mainly does. He looks at every at bat as, man, it's just at bat. It's something that with a game of baseball, you're going to have highs, and you're going to have a lot more lows than highs. And regardless if he does well or doesn't do well, it's the same expression on his face. So you can tell that he's always looking for the next at bat. He doesn't do well the one at bat. He just says, okay, new page. I'm going to go to the next at bat. I'm going to do well in that. I'm going to give it my all. If I don't do well then, okay. Like I feel as though if he goes over 4 with 4 strikeouts, going into that 5th at bat, he'll have as much confidence as he did then going into the game. So that's why he's always clutch for us in those runner and scoring position type at bats, because he just looks at every at bat as face value. He doesn't look at it as, oh man, it's extra pressure because it's running on second and third. He just looks at it like, let me just focus on seeing the ball, driving it to a place where my teammates can score, get in a better position. And then from there, he just, when he hits it, the ball in play, he just hustles. He's always hustling. He's always giving it his all. He's always trying to take advantage of something that the defense may mess up. If the defense has a bobble, he may look to go to the next bag. He may try to look around and see what's going on so he can direct his teammates in terms of where to go or not. He's just a selfless guy as well. So I think mainly he's just focused on his at-bat and he's not worrying about anything else. I think he just had the mindset, see ball, hit ball, and that's why he's so successful with runners in scoring position.
Yeah, you mentioned it with Kiobel, and in our time talking together on the podcast and off the podcast about the baseball team and the players that you play with, a lot of times when we talk about their attributes, you mentioned their coolness and their calmness. Is that a big part of the team culture, is remaining calm and working good at bats and being cool?
Yeah, I mean, like going back to Keo, that he's really the person that facilitates that, just being cool, at least in a player standpoint. Because we all get fiery, we all get hot sometimes, but a lot of times when you look at Keo play, he just gives you that sense of calmness, that sense of everything's going to be okay. And when he talks to guys around the team that may be upset, that may be very emotional and whatnot, he calms a lot of people down and say, man, you're going to get it next time, man. You have to stay focused. We can't have you out the game thinking about something else, thinking about something you can't control anymore, something that's in the past. So I think on a team, you have a bunch of personalities. I want to say that this team is the coolest team because we have a bunch of personalities, people that come here from all over the place. Guys that are more fiery, that may yell like a lot and get very emotional and get very hyped when things either go right or wrong. Then you have guys that are level-headed and like Keo, who doesn't really react to anything. But I think it's good to have a mixture of both because that's what a team's about. A team's about being together, having personalities rub off on each other and learning from each other. So I think it's very important for us to stay level-headed. Obviously, I think that's the best way, but also it's good to have these different people from different backgrounds where we can learn from that and then use those learning steps or those baby steps from those learning experiences and just move on and say like, okay, this is what we learned from this. Let's not do that again, or let's do that again. And that allows us to be so successful this year. I feel as though just mixed personalities, the willingness for everybody to accept each other as they are. And I think if we continue to do that, we're going to continue to succeed this year.
Yeah, you mentioned it, the team chemistry and everyone accepts each other for who they are. And we mentioned earlier was that there's a lot of newer players on this team. Like you said, a lot of transfers. Were you in any way surprised about how quickly some guys have been able to just become part of this team and almost be like a family and lead to this success?
Yeah, I was very surprised because I was a transfer myself. So I was very surprised. Um, I still think that we have a long way to go. I don't think we have found our ceiling in terms of how close we could be because we do sometimes have moments where when we don't do the best that we could tend to lose focus on that togetherness. And I think a lot of teams could do that, but I think only if we want to go as far as we can, we have to limit those moments. I feel as though, and that starts from within, like just practice, how we go about things at practice when people mess up, like how do we react to that when we're doing things well? Are we too high, or are we letting our heads blow up, or we still stay at level? So the closer we are to level, I think we'll continue to succeed. And when we continue to succeed, guys will get closer because they'll just be more comfortable. So I don't think we have reached our ceiling yet.
Okay, that's really interesting because, looking at the roster and meeting you, I know it's your first year here at
Yeah.
Franklin Pierce, and I would think that there'd be a lot more growing pains for a team with a bunch of new guys, all trying to come together to play some winning baseball. But you guys have played some really good baseball, not just winning baseball, but some
Mhm.
games where you guys have been absolutely dominant, like going back to that AAC series. So I just thought it was really impressive that a bunch of new guys can come together so quickly. But it's also you looking towards the future. Then, if you think that it's not even the best it could be now, that's really it gives you a lot to look forward to in the future. If you feel that the ceiling's even higher for you guys when it comes to the team chemistry and what you guys can accomplish.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I really think that, and I know you mentioned about growing pains. It's been growing pains for sure. We did not start off to the hottest start. At a point, we were 8-9, so it was growing pains. It was a lot of frustration. It was a lot of heart to heart. It was a lot of yelling, um, practice and in games. But we found a way. You know what I mean? We just found a way to come together as a team and just get closer through those bad times, those down times. And that's what I'm saying is that it's such a quick turnaround that I feel as though we're not to our top yet. That's why I'm really trying to say that because we started off bad. We did not have a good trip. Our first weekend down at Myrtle Beach, we were 1-4 at a time. We've never been 1-4 in Coach Mike Chambers' career. I'm going down there, so it was different. It was new it was foreign territory for us. It was a time where we digged ourselves a hole early, and we had to climb back out of it. Going into this year, we were a top 20 team in D2 baseball, so we had high expectations. Guys were coming after our necks and stuff like that because they say, "Oh, this guy's top 20. Let's see what they're really about. We can boost our stats if we beat this team and stuff like that." And you know, we did not do the best in the beginning of the season, and now we're at this point where we're 20-13, and I'm sure that a lot of other uh, a lot of other guys, including me, we want to be better, obviously, but we can't do nothing about that anymore. That's the past. Only thing we can do is try to take it game by game and try to just win every at bat, win every pitch, stay focused in practice, execute the game plan that we set up in practice, and that's going to continue to grow our team and chemistry and lead to success throughout the end of the season and go into the playoffs.
Very well said, Eli. And I, as a fan, I wish you guys the best of luck for St. Rose because I feel like you guys really want that game from what you've
Yeah,
described to me,
yeah,
and everyone on that team really wants that game after what transpired on Sunday.
yeah, yeah. We need that game. That game is something that we cannot let slip away. That's just a game that we need to salvage. But I think that'll be huge going into Assumptions series this weekend. So thank you, John, for discussion. And we want to thank Franklin Pierce University and the Marlon Fitzwater Center for their generosity. This podcast is a part of the Raven Sports Network and is produced by the Marlon Fitzwater Center for Communication. And it is edited by John McKenna and myself, Eli Meredith. See you next week.